Before we begin, I just want to give a quick thank you shout out to my Mutt tier Patreons, including newcomer Wilma, thank you so much for joining the crew, Glad Goku, Dare Denny, Kale Bennett, That Jordo, Ken K of Warheads, Super Hyper Mecha SP Mark II, Cyrus the Skeptic, and I've bought the entire helium supply. Have fun blowing up balloons now. Thank you folks, it means a lot. Hi, what's up? I'm Channel Pup, the mascot for the Level-Headed Fanboy, and as we celebrate the 30th birthday of beloved Sonic character Knuckles the Echidna, Sega and all other companies associated with the Sonic brand are pulling out all the stops to make this the year of Sonic's iconic rival turned friend, Shadow the Hedgehog. Which is fitting, considering Knuckles strikes me as the kind of guy who will most enjoy a solitary birthday, keeping himself to himself eating grapes on his island. So, in this video, we'll be going over the Sonic media we can expect in 2024, and how it's all about Shadow this time. But first, if you love Shadow the Hedgehog, then you're in the right place, because here on this channel, we love nothing more than to bow our heads low and all hail the ultimate life form. So if you haven't done so already, be sure to hit subscribe and pay your respect to our Hedgehog Overlord. And of course, this video, like all of my videos, is brought to you thanks to my patrons. For more information about how you can become a patron of the channel, the link is in the description below. It is a huge help and highly appreciated, as ad revenue is kinda kicking my ass right now. For one-off support, you can always use the Ko-Fi link, also in the description below. So the fact that so much of 2024's Sonic media will be hinging on Shadow is incredibly exciting to me. I am a huge Shadow the Hedgehog fanboy. I think he's easily the best part of what is, in my opinion, one of the best Sonic games of all time, Sonic Adventure 2. And he's very much the epitome of everything that I really love about the Sonic franchise, beyond just the gameplay. I love that we have this series that's populated by these Mickey Mouse looking characters, but it transcends expectations by telling sincere, thematically compelling stories that don't talk down to their target demographic, even if they are still kid-friendly or in some cases laughably localized. Even with games that I don't think work so well, like 2005's Shadow the Hedgehog, I'll always love that the Sonic series tried to do this, and was so sincere with it. Shadow epitomizes the style, the sincerity, and the will to just go relentlessly hard that makes Sonic such an enticing IP to me. With that being said, he hasn't really had a great story since 2006. Sure, we had Shadow playing a large role in the season finales of Sonic Boom, and I did enjoy them a lot, but Boom's a different thing, Shadow's a different character in that show. I thought episode Shadow of Sonic Forces did a decent job at characterizing Shadow, and is home to easily Kirk Thornton's best performance in the role, but Shadow didn't really get much to do there, considering he was plastered all over the marketing for that game. He's one of those characters where I firmly believe that he could easily be as beloved, if not maybe more so, had he been exclusive to Sonic Adventure 2, had he stayed dead. But since we've kept him around, he's been pretty underutilized, especially in the recent years, be it in the games or the IDW comic series, and I think this is typified by the first piece of major Sonic media that we had in 2024, the third and final season of Sonic Prime, a show that I have already made videos on, which I'll probably leave a link to in the pinned comment if I feel like it. But yes, Shadow did factor into Sonic Prime in a fairly involved fashion. He's a pretty central aspect of that story, and while I wasn't fond of Sonic Prime as a show, I did like how Shadow was characterized as not the moral antithesis to Sonic by any means, so much as he is the methodical antithesis to Sonic. More ruthless, more efficient, and less sentimental, but still a hero in his own right. That's all Shadow really needs to be. I much prefer this to the bitter loner-by-choice anti-hero that we'd get in games like Sonic Freeriders or Team Sonic Racing. But as I mentioned before, even as a central component to that story, he's still pretty underutilized as the show finds excuse after excuse to limit the guy's screen time. It's a shame too, because he's easily the best part of that show. But with that being said, Sonic Prime was an ongoing story that started its run in 2022, so it wasn't necessarily part of 2024's big Shadow focus. I just wanted to mention it as it was a 2024 release and gave us one of the more involved stories for Shadow in quite some time, and fuck me, that's saying quite a bit. So after a massive Sonic game drought from 2018 to 2021, we've been getting near constant Sonic content, even in the games department. Last year alone, we got substantial new additions to Sonic Origins and Sonic Frontiers, as well as Sonic Superstars and Dream Team, and this year things are not slowing down. It all started with another leak suggesting we'd be getting a remaster of Sonic Generations. Then, as more about the leak was revealed, it looked like Shadow would be getting an expanded role in this new version of Sonic Generations, and that the game would be titled Sonic X Shadow Generations. Now, I took this all with a few grains of salt because I don't like to get my hopes up and then be let down. But Sonic X Shadow Generations sounded pretty bogus for me, even if just for the title alone, which just invokes yaoi vibes. I could see a Generations remaster on the cards, sure, it's a popular game, and maybe a playable Shadow in a similar vein to Sonic Forces, where it's more of a different skin for modern Sonic, which I think would be an okay incentive to pick up the new version of the game. But Shadow having such a substantial role in the project that the whole thing gets a new title with his name in it? Yeah, okay pal, sure. Well, there was a PlayStation State of Play showcase shortly after, and lo and behold, we got our very first look at a new Sonic Generations re-release for modern consoles. And while this is described as a remaster, well, if what we've seen so far is anything to go by, I don't think the untrained eye is going to notice literally any difference here whatsoever. It looks almost the exact same. I say almost because people have spotted some differences in the grass textures in Green Hill, and then we've got this screenshot here which shows one of the shadows hasn't rendered properly under Sonic. And okay, oddly enough, this image of a cutscene here has a different camera angle to the original, which may just be for the purpose of this screenshot, and may not even be like that in the game. I almost kind of wish I never saw those leaks, because calling it a remaster got my hopes up that this game would have a fresh coat of paint, but it is very much just Sonic Generations as anyone will recognize it. Not that there's really anything wrong with that, Sonic Generations is a good looking game even today, and much of that can be attributed to strong art direction. It really goes a long way. And put it this way, as long as they haven't broken anything important or downgraded the visuals, this makes Sonic Generations the best remaster Sonic has ever had. I shit you not, I'm not even exaggerating there. But okay, controversial opinion, while it has enough problems to keep a family of wild buffalo distressed for 2 centuries, I didn't hate the overall look of Sonic Colors Ultimate. Sure, they could have dialed down the bloom just a little, and Sonic doesn't really react to the light so much as he is the light, but I do think on a whole, Ultimate's visuals, when not in motion anyway, are enough of a step up from the originals to justify maybe entertaining the mere notion of possibly picking the game up at a reduced price, or as a tax write-off if it is relevant to your job. A Sonic Generations remaster that looks damn near identical to the version that released in 2011 doesn't exactly entice me to open up my wallet again when I can already play the original on Steam with a full mod support and in 60 FPS. That being said, I do think a re-release of Sonic Generations is justified given that it is one of Sonic's best and most replayable games, and purely just to make it available on PS5, and my god is this ever going to be invaluable on the Switch. Sonic Generations on the go? That's a definite purchase. But that being said, Sonic Generations is already available on the Xbox Series consoles with a 60 FPS boost. But that being said, it's probably the buggiest release of that game given that the hook shortcuts in Chemical Plant don't work. Sega, what are you like? Now there is of course the question, of all the Sonic games out there, is this really the one that needs a remaster, given that it does still look good today, and that there are other games that could benefit from quality of life improvements and visual overhauls? Well, it is the nature of the beast that oftentimes the products that will be revisited are those that need it the least. Sonic Generations and Colors brought an injection of goodwill to the franchise, at the time of their respective releases, and are still considered strong entries to this day. So naturally, Sega will want to double dip and keep those titles readily available for new generations. If you ask me, one of the most awesome things Sega could ever do would be to throw as much money as is necessary at Chaos X to buy the publishing rights to Sonic P06, finish it up, and release it officially. Sega would rewrite history if they did that. Not just doing that, but rewriting the point where Sonic became a laughingstock as far as the public consciousness goes, even if I still don't think Sonic 06 is that bad. Sure, you'd still have the issues with the story in there unless they change it, but I guarantee people would be willing to overlook that with the improvements Chaos X has made to literally every aspect of the game. It would probably go down in history as one of the franchise's best. The problem is, outside of the well-versed among us who keep tabs on all the developments when it comes to Sonic, it probably wouldn't sell too well, which is why I propose releasing it as part of a bundle. P06 bundled in with maybe an Unleashed remaster, or the Generations remaster, or just something along those lines. Perhaps a Sonic Frontiers remaster that makes the game not look like absolute garbage, because trust me, it's never too easy to polish up the visuals of that masterpiece. Which I say with complete sincerity, by the way. The game might be ugly as sin, but I adore the game in spite of that. But okay, what could they do to make me double dip for Sonic Generations? Well, adding any new playable characters, be it in the form of a skin or a new playstyle, would probably justify a purchase from me. Making tweaks to classic Sonic's physics would be another one, perhaps some additional levels. But the main thing that stood out as a problem with the original game to me was the story. I mentioned before how Shadow the Hedgehog epitomizes what I love about Sonic beyond the gameplay, how the stories go so far with unforgettable, well, stories. Sonic Generations totally missed the mark in that aspect, with its story serving purely as justification for the gameplay, which makes some sense, but it's a huge disappointment, especially considering the potential that comes with Sonic running through his past adventures. It's a chance for reflection, figuratively and literally, yet it never takes that opportunity. If a Sonic Generations re-release were to fix that, it would probably reshape my already favorable opinion of this game and elevate it more to the level of games like Sonic Unleashed. Realistically, I don't think they're going to do that. It would be pretty unprecedented. But with that said, we did see the most recent mainline Sonic game get an entirely reworked ending via a free DLC, so anything could happen. But I think realistically, Sonic Generations is getting remastered in the sense that it can run at a native 4K 60 FPS and is available on modern consoles. I think that's all that is happening so far as the Sonic Generations remaster goes. What's getting me to double dip is the part I doubted was real but was absolutely proven wrong about. Bundled in with Sonic Generations is Shadow Generations, a brand new game which takes Shadow on a journey through his painful, trauma-filled past in a story that's going to explore Shadow's motivations and character. Okay, great. So, in a way, we are fixing the lack of story in Sonic Generations by including a game with Sonic Generations that does have an interesting story, hopefully. Black Doom returns as the big bad threatening to take over the world, and so Shadow sets out on a quest through time to stop him once again. So this very much has all the makings of a spiritual successor to Sonic Generations in that we have time travel, familiar locations, and returning enemies. Sega have a tendency to refuse to acknowledge or celebrate the parts of their legacy that weren't so well received, so it is incredible to see Black Doom return as the main villain of a Shadow the Hedgehog spin-off game in 2024. What we effectively have here is both a Sonic Generations 2 and Shadow the Hedgehog 2 all in one, and I never could have predicted that, but I'm overjoyed to see this happening. Shadow will face off against other familiar adversaries, one of which is the Bio Lizard, who we've already seen in the trailer. But I do want to theorize a little on who else could throw down against Shadow. I'll say this much, there's no better opportunity to bring back Mephiles the Dark than this. I understand that the events of Sonic 06 are effectively erased, but we don't really know exactly how the rules of time travel work when it comes to Sonic. Perhaps the 06 timeline still remains, and will be part of the story, but Shadow just won't remember it. After all, Crisis City did appear in the original Sonic generations, so it could just be some other dimension or other timeline that we'll dip into. But if we are ever going to see Mephiles again, it's here. And given that he got a Jakks Pacific action figure this year too, I think there's a chance we'll see him. Perhaps we could also get the chance to throw down with Neo Metal Sonic, maybe even out of his Metal Overlord form. We never got the chance to just fight him as Neo Metal. This would absolutely give us the opportunity to do that. I'd also love to see Infinite again, and given that Shadow was integral to his admittedly really stupid origin story, this could be a great chance to get a rematch. Then for stages, so far we've seen Final Chase and Wistopolis, which all look great, now with new assets. Although I reckon Wistopolis is probably going to utilize a lot of assets from Speed Highway. The question is, what other stages could we see? If they're doing one from each game like the original generations did, I'd say on top of Final Chase and Wistopolis, we could have Final Fortress from Sonic Heroes, Aquatic Base from Sonic 06, and Enemy Territory from Sonic Forces. On top of that, it would be sweet if we could see what Shadow was getting up to during the events of other Sonic games that he didn't actually appear in, be it Unleashed or Colors or Frontiers. With that being said, I definitely don't expect the game to be longer than Sonic Generations, which was already like a 3-hour game even on a casual playthrough. I think duration is going to be quite a factor here in how much of an easy buy this will be. If it's like Episode Shadow of Sonic Forces clocking in at around 12 minutes, safe to say it won't be worth the expected $60 price tag. Sega would have to get fairly inventive to get this game as long as the original Generations, given that Generations had 2 different playstyles, 2 acts per zone, and 9 zones, and then on top of that you got all the bonus challenge gates. It's just the luck of the draw, Sonic has more games than Shadow. They could dig deep and adapt elements from games like Sonic Battle or the IDW comics, but I don't see them doing that. It depends what the priorities of this project are, whether this is purely supplementary material for Sonic Generations, or it is the main event of this release. See, looking at the game in the trailer and the promo images, this is clearly a different game to Sonic Generations. It appears to be running with the lighting improvements of Hedgehog Engine 2, and it's an even better looking game than Generations for it. And the animations, the models, and the environments, they all look terrific. We're seeing some really ambitious set pieces here, but there's lots of discussion surrounding the tiny bits of gameplay we've seen. We can see that Shadow has the boost aura from Sonic Forces, but his homing attack, which now functions as a short-range chaos control, has more the timing of the Frontiers homing attack. We're also seeing the Chaos Spear in action during the Bio-Lizard fight. The jump ball is much closer to the Frontiers one, so this clearly isn't being built off of the original Sonic Generations framework. It's using aspects of the more recent titles, with a lot of folks expecting, for better or worse, that this is going to be utilizing more of Sonic Frontiers' controls. And to be honest, I'm more than happy with that, provided that it is more open zone control-y than cyberspace control-y. The only real difference is that cyberspace didn't let you adjust the turning speed. If Shadow controls like Frontiers with the turning speed turned up and no jump deacceleration, we're on to a winner because I love how that feels. Now, I think what we're getting with Sonic X Shadow Generations is one of two things. Either they set out to remaster Sonic Generations and made the Shadow story to entice players to return and double dip, much more easily justifying that purchase, or, and this is the one I'm anticipating the most here, Shadow Generations is effectively the main event, but it's maybe quite a small and short game, so they made some very quick, very minor tweaks to Sonic Generations and are selling it as a bundle to justify selling it for full price. So it's a shorter game, but you can only buy it as a bundle. And the bundle is just acceptable value for money, despite the fact you already own the original game. This is just speculation, but from where I'm sat, this all looks very strategic to me. Good value for newcomers, less than desirable for those who already own the original, but hey ho, it's a game you already love, paired with an exciting new one. Now, the wording on the listing for Sonic X Shadow Generations is just a tad vague regarding what the remaster entails. So here's the wording. Sonic X Shadow Generations also includes a complete remaster of the classic hit Sonic Generations, featuring newly remastered versions of iconic 2D and 3D stages with upgraded visuals and bonus content. So the way this reads, you could be fooled into believing that Sonic Generations just itself has also received bonus content, as this part seems to be describing just the remaster. But it wouldn't technically be incorrect if the bonus content they're referring to here is Shadow Generations. This is how they can use roundabout wording to sell the product as being bigger than it really is, without technically being misleading. I hope I'm wrong about that, because I'd love some new Generations content, but I don't advise expecting that, as you may be disappointed, and if that is the case, it does suck that they're using a very roundabout method of advertising. But it's not the first time they've done something like this, such as the whole new playable characters promotion for the original Sonic Origins release, which wasn't technically untrue, but it wasn't exactly upfront and honest about what it was. So Sonic X Shadow Generations releases this fall, but coinciding with that, we'll be getting an update to Sonic Superstars on February 15th, which adds a Shadow costume to the game. And again, it's a little vague as to what this actually is. On one hand, it would be really exciting to be able to run around Sonic Superstars as the very first appearance of a classic Shadow.
Oh, but that wouldn't make sense in the lore.
No, and it wouldn't make sense to the lore that Sonic and his friends are running around as Legos, or that Max the Rabbit is running around, or that Spider-Man 2099 or Ben Reilly are in the Insomniac Spider-Man games. Hi, buddy, they're games. They're supposed to be fun. Not everything needs to matter to canon. It's not a documentary. I'd like a classic Shadow skin just because it would be cool. But again, we don't know exactly what this entails. It could also just be a modern Shadow skin, or Sonic in a little Shadow onesie, or Shadow robot parts for the battle mode. Any of these sound cool to me, to be honest, but it'll just be cool to at least see Shadow referenced in a classic Sonic title. This is cool, this is historical. But then there's the reason why all of this is happening. We are of course getting the third Sonic movie at the end of the year, with Shadow as the major draw this time. This does make sense, as previously Sega have offered up re-releases to coincide with the films as a means of getting new fans acquainted with the games. While it was delayed a year due to the pandemic, Sonic Colors Ultimate was meant to appeal to fans of the first film, as it's a solid game to get to know Sonic with, and they offered movie-themed cosmetics and a baby Sonic keychain. Then for Sonic 2, Sonic Origins was meant to release at a similar time to that movie, but that too was delayed. And that one made a lot of sense to release alongside Sonic 2, as you've got the Emerald lore, you've got introductions to Knuckles and Tails, etc, etc. And so, for Sonic 3, you've got Sonic X Shadow Generations, a release that makes one of Sonic's best games readily available to new fans coming from that film, and the Shadow story for them to learn more about his character, and unlike the last times, this will be hitting store shelves on time for Movie 3's release. Hopefully. It's a smart way to go about things, offering remasters of some of the more popular Sonic games that also coincide with the releases of the films. Obviously, Sonic Adventure 2 would make a lot of sense as well, but at the same time, that would be a much bigger remaster job to make that game approachable to a new generation. It's a classic, but it needs tidying up big time before presenting to the young'uns and casuals of today. Plus, Sonic Generations does have a number of references to Sonic Adventure 2 anyway, and is one of the more well-received and recent Shadow appearances. I mean, I ain't saying I wouldn't prefer a Sonic Adventure 2 remaster, of course I would, but like, you know, at the same time, we're getting kind of a new game with Shadow Generations. I just hope it's substantial enough. So moving on, as for that third film, we did receive our very first teaser revealing the logo for the film, followed by some casting announcements. Although we don't yet know who's playing who. What we do know is that Jim Carrey will be reprising his role as Dr. Robotnik despite announcing his retirement last year, stating that the conditions for him to return to acting would be a script written in pure gold. While I always suspected this was a publicity stunt to big up the quality of this film. However, this is a big deal still, as Carrey tends to avoid sequels and he's sure as hell never done a threequel before. Now there's an achievement our Hedgehog can be proud of. Given that this story is drawing cues from Sonic Adventure 2, Dr. Robotnik is a vital part of this story, so despite expecting his return, I am still relieved and happy nevertheless. No casting for Shadow has been announced yet. Fans have speculated Keanu Reeves or Robert Pattinson could play the role, while rumors have circulated that Hayden Christensen will play Shadow. So okay, if it's announced that it's Keanu Reeves playing Shadow, I'm fine with that. That's a fine choice. But if it's Robert Pattinson or Hayden Christensen, then those are absolutely based choices. Pattinson would be a very obvious pick, especially after his performance in The Batman, where his introverted, vengeful yet heroic performance really wasn't too far a cry from what I would expect from Shadow. Then there's Hayden Christensen, who I feel would deliver a performance that would feel most authentic to David Humphrey's Shadow, which would really bring him back to his roots. Officially cast though is Kristen Ritter, who is speculated to play Rouge the Bat, and Alia Brown, who is speculated to play Maria Robotnik, and yes, I am completely serious when I say I want to see a little girl get murdered in a kid's film. Please Paramount, don't puss out. Cap that kid. Neither of these roles are confirmed by any means, but both Kristen Ritter and Alia Brown are definitely going to be in the film. Now, I'm definitely hoping Amy will be in this film, as she's a vital component to the Sonic Adventure 2 story, being the one to finally talk Shadow down. But also, as she's such an important character to the Sonic mythos, that it would be a real shame to just ignore her. If she is in the film, my casting picks would be either Kristen Schaal, best known for voicing Louise in Bob's Burgers, Melissa Rauch, most known for playing Bernadette in The Big Bang Theory, or of course the fan favorite choice Anna Kendrick, who has just been in a lot of stuff I haven't seen. Okay, I saw Noelle and I thought she was great in that, and I could easily hear her as Amy. Then, okay, we've got our teaser, and the logo is clearly reminiscent to the Sonic Adventure 2 logo, and the music that plays is an orchestrated version of Live and Learn. Now, before you get too excited, they did do this with the previous movie trailers. Sonic 2 had the Emerald Hill theme orchestrated in its trailers, yet it never featured in the film. The scores of the Sonic movies have been easily one of the weaker aspects, which is a shame, as I really enjoy the other work of composer Tom Holkenborg, who is returning for Sonic 3. But this doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. Sadly, Holkenborg is a little misunderstood when it comes to the Sonic movie scores, as though he willingly ignores the game music and the legacy that comes with Sonic music. For the first movie, he actually bought a YM2612, which was the sound chip used to produce the Sega Mega Drive Sonic soundtracks, and he intended to utilize this for the entire score of the first film, with the Green Hill motif intended to be regularly reprised as Sonic's main theme. However, he was asked to stick to orchestral, and because Dreams Come True owned the rights to Sonic 1 and 2 soundtracks, music from those games had to be used very, very sparingly. From this, it's clear to me that Holkenborg isn't really the issue with the Sonic movie soundtracks, so much as a lot of bad studio decisions that underestimate the importance of music when it comes to Sonic. Heck, they don't even have to use the game music. If Tom Holkenborg brought the same energy he brought to Zack Snyder's Justice League to the Sonic movies, he could easily capture the vibe of a Sonic soundtrack regardless of whether or not he uses game music. Seriously, look up We Do This Together from Zack Snyder's Justice League soundtrack and tell me you can't picture Sonic and Shadow fighting together. With that being said, we are in a post-Mario movie world. Being the most successful video game of all time by quite a margin, Mario will definitely be influential to his contemporaries, and that film was chock full of orchestral renditions of existing Mario music. As well as that, Crush 40 lead vocalist Johnny Gioeli has teased possible involvement in the film. If we hear Crush 40's Live and Learn anywhere in this film, I will be a happy camper. It will all be worthwhile, and I think Paramount only needs to look at the performances of the Sonic Symphony and the crowd response to see how culturally important this music really is. With that being said, you know how Hollywood is, the bigger the name the better, so here's my prediction. Weezer will cover Escape from the City. Fall Out Boy will cover Live and Learn. And now we play the waiting game. So that's all we know so far. That's what's in store for us for the Year of Shadow. As for the 30th anniversary of Knuckles, well, it's not for naught, as we will be getting the Knuckles TV series on Paramount Plus this year. But I'll also talk more about that in a separate video, as for now, I kind of just want to focus on the Year of Shadow. So what do you guys think? Are you looking forward to Sonic X Shadow Generations? What do you think the whole situation with that is? Who do you think is going to play Shadow in Sonic Movie 3? What characters do you want to see? Comment below, discuss, and as always, if you enjoyed this video and you want to support more like it, be sure to hit subscribe, hit the like button. Believe me, it really does help. And in the description below is my Patreon link, where for as little as $1 a month, you can get updates on my fan film projects, which includes a Sonic fan film that I'm working on, as well as getting your name in the credits of these videos, with a special shout out going to the patrons in the $5 and above tiers. We've got Wilma, Kalex, Richard Rogers, Glad Goku, Dare Denny, SSS06, Kale Bennett, That Jordo, Kenkei of Warheads, Dazzle Fizzle, Super Hyper Mecha SP Mark II, Surus the Skeptic, I bought the entire helium supply, have fun blowing up balloons now, and Vera Wild. Thank you folks so much for your generosity, and to those of you at home, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Now get out of here.